Maria Delgado's alarm went off at 9:45 every night, and for 10 years straight she never once hit snooze. By 10 o'clock she was dressed in her navy blue scrubs, kissing her sleeping son's forehead, and driving through the empty streets of Fairview to St. Anne's Medical Center, where she worked as a night shift custodian, mopping floors that doctors and nurses would walk across the next morning without ever knowing her name. She had moved to Fairview when Daniel was 3, after his father left without so much as a note, and she had promised herself one thing: her son would never know what it felt like to go without. The night shift paid $2 more an hour than the day shift, and those $2 over 10 years became the difference between a boy who wore secondhand shoes and a boy who wore secondhand shoes but also had a laptop for school, a winter coat that actually fit, and enough left over for the occasional pizza night. Maria slept from 7 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, waking just in time to make Daniel's lunch, help with his homework, and pretend she wasn't exhausted. She never complained. She never let him see her cry, not even the year the transmission went out on her car and she walked 40 minutes to the bus stop in the snow rather than ask anyone for help. Daniel grew up watching his mother's hands, always cracked from cleaning chemicals, always moving, never idle. He grew up understanding, in the quiet way children understand things they're never told outright, that his mother's exhaustion was the reason he had a childhood at all. He started keeping a small notebook in 8th grade, jotting down moments he wanted to remember. The time she stayed awake through her only day off to watch his baseball game, the time she sold her grandmother's ring to pay for his class trip and told him it was just sitting in a drawer anyway. He never told her about the notebook. He just kept writing. By the time Daniel was accepted into State University on a partial scholarship, Maria had aged in ways that had nothing to do with years. Her back ached permanently from a decade of bending over mop buckets. Her hands trembled slightly in the mornings, but she never missed a single night of work. Because missing work meant missing a paycheck, and missing a paycheck meant Daniel might have to leave school. She told herself she could rest later. Later became a word she used to survive the present. 4 years passed in a blur of double shifts and long-distance phone calls, care packages assembled from a grocery budget stretched thin, and a pride that swelled in Maria's chest every single semester. Daniel's grades came in, and then, on a warm Saturday morning in May, Maria sat in the 3rd row of a university auditorium, wearing the only formal dress she owned, watching her son walk across a stage in a cap and gown. When Daniel stepped up to the podium as class valedictorian, he unfolded a single sheet of paper, looked out at the crowd, and found his mother's face immediately, the way he always could. He didn't talk about grades or ambition or the future. He talked about a woman who worked while the rest of the world slept, who mopped hospital floors, so her son could one day walk across a different kind of floor, in a cap and gown, toward a life she had built for him with her own 2 exhausted hands. He read from the notebook he had kept since he was 13, and by the 3rd sentence, Maria's hands were pressed against her mouth, and by the 5th, there wasn't a single dry eye in that auditorium, strangers and parents alike reaching for tissues they didn't know they'd need. "My mother never once told me she was tired," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "She let me believe the world was easy, so that I could dream big inside it. Everything I am, every degree, every opportunity belongs to her first." After the ceremony, Daniel didn't rush to his friends or the photo lines. He walked straight to his mother, wrapped his arms around her, and whispered that her night shifts were finally over, that from now on, it was his turn to work and hers to rest. Maria, who hadn't cried in front of her son in over a decade, finally let herself, not from exhaustion this time, but from the quiet, overwhelming relief of a promise she had made 10 years ago, finally fully kept. Every morning, 70-year-old Frank Miller sat alone on the same park bench, feeding pigeons, watching families pass by. Nobody knew that 30 years ago, he had raised 3 foster children nobody else wanted. Kids labeled too difficult, too broken. He never adopted, never sought credit, just gave them a home until they could stand on their own. One rainy Tuesday, a young woman knelt beside his bench, tears in her eyes. "Mr. Miller?" "It's me, Sarah. I'm a doctor now. Because of you." Behind her stood 2 more grown kids, now a teacher and an engineer, all holding flowers, all coming home.